There's still people that are still running around. You might not even know it. You pass them on the roads daily, that's their history. And the reason that they are there and that they exist is because somebody had a mind of resistance and survival instinct. So I'm Matthew Griffin, 30. I'm a Seminole reenactor and living historian. I was about 10 years old when I first started being on the battlefield doing the reenactments and stuff. So around about that same time, we found our own family's connection with the Seminoles and this part of history and stuff as well. So just everything just kind of fell together. So yeah, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. I had a grandfather and grandmother, so many greats ago, that escaped from a plantation in Alabama, ended up in Florida near Brooksville. One of their boys ended up marrying a Seminole from that village, which was Chuckachatty or Red House. At the same time that I'm learning my family connection, I'm out here doing the reenactments and learning from all of these reenactors and historians and stuff, so I've been able to kind of weave all of that together and stuff. Came here today for the reenactment, which commemorates the battle that took place here, the Osceola and Wiley Thompson, the Indian agent that was here in 1835. But apart from that was just to come and basically do what we're doing now, just teach people about the history of the Seminole Wars and the history of the Black Seminoles during this time period.
One of the Black Seminoles that we know a lot about historically, his name was John Horse. But he's actually not at this site on that day. He is actually at the Dade battle site. But we knew that Abraham was here, and we also knew that Micanopy as well as Osceola are here. So I said, well, I can do the Abraham character because I've researched him. He was born, probably parents' father was a doctor during the Spanish time. So he could speak Spanish, English, and learned Indian. He becomes, as the character I play, is very valuable. So that was the thought process, to have a character represent this historical figure, Abraham. And then the hard part starts. Because what Abraham does on this particular day is not the easiest thing to talk about. In fact, is that Mr. Wiley Thompson? Well, there's a man named Wiley Thompson who, because of the policies that he's representing, which will ultimately mean the removal of all the Indians, he is murdered. Although we didn't think of it that way, but the fact is that he was alive when we came and he was dead when we left. And that the other fact is that, yes, that did start the war because the Army soldiers were killed later the same day, and there were also warriors fighting East Florida as well. But it's my job to try and tell this fairly complicated story that somehow revolves around an expression, if you eat from the same kettle. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we're in Ireland and you're a traditional Irish family, if I live with you long enough, you'll sort of forget that I don't look exactly like you. If I have dinner and breakfast every day with you for 40 or 50 years, I start to feel pretty Irish. And since we've had dinner together all those times, unless you're really mean, I start to feel like family. So it would seem that for people who relate to the story of Black Seminoles, it is not just a question of, can I prove genetically that I am 50% or 25% Seminole? Very difficult to prove, because that for my mother to be 25% would mean her grandmother had to be 100%. Well, I'm not going to quibble about percentages or bloodlines, but only to say that everyone who fought in the Seminole Wars was not a native person. But there had been people who had been fighting and living with the Seminoles for so long that for all intents and purposes, they thought of themselves as Seminoles. So as I've learned about Abraham and many of these characters, I feel like I can say, you know what? I wouldn't judge you now. And that maybe if there are spirits floating around there, out there somewhere, that they can say, gee, there's someone who's not judging me. So on a personal level, this is about some connection that someone might even call spiritual. I want to make a connection to my ancestral past and learn about the cultures that influenced us and how we may have influenced those cultures.
This is a piece of history that does not get talked about that much. Just hearing little tidbits and stuff from family members and just making the connection between, okay, wait a minute, I've seen that before. I understand why they might have done that, and just being able to put those puzzle pieces and stuff together.
Come on, you're part of the family too.
Just a part of history that's near and dear to my heart. I run into a lot of people all the time. They're like, well, Florida doesn't have any history. I'm like, no, that's not true. So be able to kind of stand in the gap and be that bridge between the old and the present and share that history with people, that is pretty rewarding.